Capricorn Clark. She was Diddy's assistant for several years, from 2004 through 2012.
Clark even said that Diddy threatened her on her very first day working for him.
He told me he was going to kill Kid Cudi over Kid Cudi's affair with Cassie. He came to my apartment livid with a gun. He said, "Get dressed," quote, "We're going to kill this N-word."
The courtroom fell silent as the ex-employee stood to testify. "I feared for my life," they said, their voice trembling. What could push someone to make accusations of murder plots against one of the most powerful men in music? And how did Sean Diddy Combs react when his darkest secrets were revealed in front of the jury? It was week 2 of the trial, and the stakes had never been higher. This testimony could change everything. Stay with us as we uncover the details.
Because her job put her inside the core of Diddy's business empire. Now, Clark testified that she was kidnapped, her words, when Diddy found out that Cassie Ventura was dating Kid Cudi. She also told the jury today about the multiple times that Diddy had threatened her own life, including during her very first day on the job. And she said that Diddy had final approval over every aspect of Cassie's career. Now, Clark, she worked for Diddy on and off for more than a decade, starting first as a personal assistant in 2004. And what she alleged happened in December of 2011 may be the most shocking. That's when Diddy discovered that Cassie was in a relationship of some kind with Kid Cudi. She said that Diddy banged on her door around 6 o'clock in the morning, holding a gun and furious she didn't tell him about Cassie and Cudi. Clark says to the jury, quote, "He just said, 'Get dressed, we're going to kill this N-word.'" And when she tried to protest, she said Diddy told her, "I don't give an F what you want to do. Go get dressed."
Capricorn Clark and Ventura, Cassie Ventura, went to see Sean Combs at his Los Angeles homes. Combs, this is after he had broken into Kid Cudi's. Combs was in a robe and underwear and immediately began kicking Cassie. This is right when he's finding out that she'd been allegedly having an affair with Kid Cudi. Not allegedly. Cassie says it's so, and so did Kid Cudi. And he immediately began kicking Cassie. Capricorn Clark says she and a security guard stood by as Combs repeatedly kicked Cassie Ventura. Capricorn said Combs threatened to hurt her, too, if she tried to stop him. Capricorn Clark said she left after the security guard told her to leave, and Cassie Ventura was still on the ground while Combs continued to kick her. Capricorn said she called Cassie Ventura's mom, Regina, as she left, saying, quote, "Please help her. I can't call the police, but you can." Regina Ventura said she would handle it and hung up.
The ex-employee's name was finally spoken aloud, and for a moment, the courtroom seemed to collectively stop breathing. This wasn't just any former staffer of Sean Diddy Combs. They had been part of the inner circle, someone who had seen the unguarded moments behind the scenes. Their position as a personal assistant had given them unique access to Diddy's life, access that few others could claim. Trusted with everything from scheduling to private matters, they had been a constant presence for years. That's why their testimony struck like lightning. No one saw it coming, least of all Diddy's defense team. The weight of their accusations made the atmosphere in the room even heavier. The former assistant, previously a nameless figure in the public narrative, presented themselves with stark resolve. They described how they had carried the burden of fear and intimidation for years, unable to speak out until now. The threats were not vague, they said, their voice steady but strained, eyes nervously darting between the attorneys and Diddy himself. From the moment they spoke, it was clear their testimony wasn't an attempt to gain attention. It was a declaration born out of desperation, and, according to them, necessity. Their nervous energy resonated throughout the courtroom. At times, their hands trembled as they pointed to pieces of evidence or recalled key moments, but their words never wavered. Several gallery members sat wide-eyed, leaning forward as the allegations began to unfold. Diddy remained expressionless, staring down at the polished table in front of him, but his clenched jaw betrayed him. Jurors exchanged glances, though most kept their eyes fixed on the witness stand. What made the testimony so surprising wasn't just its content. It was the methodical way the former employee unraveled each detail. They spoke about years of alleged mistreatment, intimidation, and what they described as constant reminders of who was in control. They began with a chilling claim, recounting a specific moment when Diddy allegedly made a direct threat against their life. They recalled the words clearly, too clearly, because they said the fear had forced them to replay that moment over and over again. And yet, even with that disturbing revelation, it was clear they weren't finished. The testimony appeared to be building toward something even more serious. The assistant described feeling trapped for years, their safety constantly at risk. They had tried to leave the music mogul circle several times, only to be pulled back, each departure marked by further intimidation. But now, they explained, the cost of staying silent had become greater than the risks of speaking out. As their words echoed across the room, the air felt thick with tension. This was no longer just another celebrity legal case. It was a plea for accountability. The testimony didn't just raise concerns about dangerous behavior. It challenged everything supporters thought they knew about Diddy. With their final statement, the witness pointed to something even more disturbing, leaving the courtroom on edge. What came next would reveal allegations the public was hardly prepared to hear. Claims of a plotted murder.
Clark said that she was then swept into a Cadillac Escalade. They drove to Kid Cudi's home, and she claimed that Diddy and one of his security guards then went inside the house. Clark frantically called Cassie to tell her what was happening, testifying that a short time later, Cudi's car pulled up next to them and then took off. Diddy and the security guard jumped back in the Escalade. Then she described a short car chase before Cudi got away. After it was all over, Clark said Diddy gave her an ultimatum.
Diddy is a criminal. I mean, I say this, by the evidence, by what we know, by the video of him beating Cassie, and we know he's a criminal.
Which is undisputed. He does not dispute that that was him in the video beating her.
We know it. We know that this is abject degeneracy of the highest order that has spanned decades. You go back and watch Get Him to the Greek again, and you see P. Diddy's character in that movie, and you understand it was based on reality and not comedic writing. It takes on a whole new meaning. But once you look at this and say, this is supposed to be a trial about criminal sex trafficking RICO, as in there's an infrastructure. There were cameras all over P. Diddy's apartment. He was running effectively a blackmail extortion ring, and this entire prosecution has been reduced now to two witnesses, Cassie and Jane Doe. Once you start viewing this prosecution as the cover-up and not the exposing of the criminality, it'll take on a whole new meaning.
Covering up what, though? What do you mean? Yeah, you're gonna explain.
There is an extortion ring that involves other people that is not being fleshed out here. And it's sort of like the movie The Titanic, where you have this entire backdrop of the crisis of the Titanic, and it is reduced to Billy Zane chasing the woman, I forget her name, around the boat. Like
Rose.
You have, yeah, well, I figured her name, Kate Blanchett. Winslet. So you have this entire blackmail extortion ring. They went and raided Diddy's house. There were cameras there. We know that it involves the higher ups in the entertainment industry, if not the world of politics as well. And this entire prosecution is reduced to P. Diddy and what we know of his abuse of Cassie and potentially Jane. And then once you flesh out the fact that for whatever the reason, Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, is still involved as one of this trial. This trial is a show trial.
The ex-employee spoke in a steady voice as they explained the first moment that had taken away their peace. Their testimony included how Diddy allegedly looked them in the eyes during a private meeting and said, "You know what happens when people cross me. People disappear." That sentence, though short, stayed in the air like a warning. It wasn't just the words, they said. It was the tone, and how Diddy leaned forward a little as if waiting for their reaction. They remembered feeling frozen, unsure if speaking would make things worse, but it wasn't the last threat they received. According to their testimony, the threats didn't always come directly from Diddy. The ex-employee said that messages were often passed through other people, those who were part of his close circle. One serious example was a late-night phone call. The former assistant said, "I picked up and recognized the voice." Then they were told, "You're still protected as long as you don't talk." After that, the caller hung up. This kind of message was reportedly repeated over the years, with new voices saying the same warning in different ways. Each time, the meaning was clear. Stay silent to stay safe. One detailed moment showed how the fear had grown over time. The ex-employee described an argument when Diddy became angry over what he thought was a betrayal. During that moment, the assistant claimed he gave a warning that was framed as advice. "You're lucky I know how to handle things the clean way now," he said. The courtroom responded. There were soft murmurs before the judge asked everyone to settle down. Whether or not Diddy meant it that way, the statement made some jurors visibly tense. The ex-employee also shared how these threats changed their life. They avoided going out in public and changed where they lived more than once. They always felt like they were being watched. I looked in the rearview mirror every time I drove, they said. Even when I wasn't sure, I felt like someone might be behind me. They said they installed extra security in their home, checked locks often, and leaned on friends to help keep watch. The emotional stress showed, even though they looked calm while speaking. As their story became clearer, the weight of it grew. Inside the courtroom, people were listening closely. Some jurors leaned forward, clearly focused. Others took notes quickly. The prosecution stayed locked in, sometimes glancing at the defense team. Diddy sat quietly, but at times tapped his fingers on the table. It wasn't loud, but it caught attention and made it seem like he was uneasy. What stood out wasn't just the threats. It was the idea that this may not have been a one-time thing. It suggested a repeated pattern. The testimony then went into more personal details. The ex-employee talked about how they had stopped attending industry events. They were worried about being seen. "I didn't feel safe," they said. They explained how they kept their location private and didn't share much, even with people they trusted. Their routine was affected too. They kept their phone on silent, turned off location settings, and avoided posting online. They said, "I was always thinking, is this safe? Am I being followed?" Another detail added to the weight of the testimony. The former assistant explained how each time they thought of leaving Diddy's circle, something happened that made them stay. "I tried to quit several times," they said, "but I always got pulled back." They didn't say whether it was pressure, threats, or loyalty, but the result was the same. They stayed, and the longer they stayed, the more fear they said they felt. As the assistant continued, the courtroom remained silent. Even those who had been fidgeting earlier were still. The way the ex-employee told their story was calm but serious. At times, they looked straight ahead. Other times, they looked down or glanced around. But their message stayed clear. The fear was real, and it had lasted for years. It wasn't just something in the past. It was something they still carried with them. Diddy. Prosecution took notes, and the defense team listened carefully. Diddy remained mostly still, but now and then he moved in his seat or tapped a finger. The judge watched both sides, occasionally adjusting papers or glancing at the witness. The moment felt important, as if everyone knew what was being said, could shift the direction of the case. The former assistant didn't raise their voice. They didn't cry, but their words made an impact. It was in the details, the timeline, and the way they described each event. Their fear seemed to come from lived experience, not from imagination. And by the end of their testimony, the room seemed even more tense than when they started. Some people looked at each other, some didn't move. The testimony wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was serious. And for many in the room, it left questions that were not easy to answer. As the courtroom sat in heavy silence, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about power or fame. It was about fear, control, and the stories that rarely reach the light. The ex-employee's words painted a chilling picture, not just of what allegedly happened behind closed doors, but of what it cost to finally speak out. And if even a fraction of it is true, we're only scratching the surface of something much darker. But the question now isn't just what Diddy did or didn't do, it's how many voices were silenced before someone dared to be heard. What do you think? Does this testimony change everything? Or is it just the beginning? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because this story is far from over, and what's coming next might shake the industry even more. Stay tuned. Truth has a way of breaking through.